This meeting of the Onteora Board of Education is now called to order. We have a tobacco policy in place. There is no smoking within 100 feet of any school building. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. District Clerk, can you please take roll call?
Trustee Sherry,
Present.
Trustee Bishop,
Present.
Trustee Story,
Here.
Trustee Wallace, Trustee Raimondo,
Present.
Trustee Hemingway Lynch, Trustee Taylor. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss a proposed litigation. May I have a first, please? Trustee Story, second Trustee Bishop. Comments or questions? All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. We should be back in about 15 minutes. Motion to exit executive session, return to public session. May I have a first, please? Trustee Story, second Trustee Raimondo. Questions or comments? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. I'd like to welcome the high school principal, Lance Edelman.
Thank you. I don't think that that's on up there, is it? I can't see it from down here. It's warming up. All right, so we'll do this without the PowerPoint. I have it on the screen. I could see it. You guys just can't. It's all right. I could still use the screen. Well, anyway, welcome to the Onteora High School. I thought that since there was so many new members of the board, I thought it would be a good idea for me to maybe go through a little bit about what the high school looks like this year, what we have to offer, and some things that we're proud about, and some items that we're concerned about as well. I do hope everyone does have the presentation in front of you, so you could see the numbers, so I don't have to read it out. So I wanted to start talking about the 2022-23 school year and our student enrollment. On that first slide, you should have all the student enrollments over the last 5 or 6 years. You can see this year we have 413 students in our high school. And if you look at the trend, obviously you can see that we have some declining enrollment over the years. And I do want to point out that next year we anticipate that our enrollment in the high school will be about 400 students. And the year after that, we should be down to about 385 if the trends continue. And that's based upon what the enrollments look like at the middle school level right now. So just rolling those over and losing students. So we have to keep that in mind because the high school offers quite a bit. And in order to protect those programs, it's going to be very important to be cognizant of the numbers that are coming in. I also just wanted to talk about our classification rate. Our high school does have a 16% special education classification rate. As students progress through the grades, we typically see a decline in the classification rate. We do a lot of declassification. But you could see like our 9th grade this year is about 21% classified students. And then we get down to our 12th grade, we're at about 15%. One of the things that I'm really proud of and I think is very impressive for our high school is the fact that we have very rich and exciting course offerings. And on the next 3 slides, I've kind of broken them out just to give you a sampling of what those course offerings are by discipline. And again, I say it's remarkable because when I go to my county-wide principals meetings and I talk about the things that we're offering, some of these bigger schools are amazed that we're doing it. So we're definitely giving our students a leg up and a huge advantage. I'm not going to read all 3 slides to you, but I will sum it up, which is on that there's a slide that says course offering summary. In the high school, we have approximately 115 unique courses. Special education, we have 12 that are intensive or self-contained, and we have 14 courses that are co-taught. It's remarkable that we offer 31 different elective courses in our master schedule. We offer 10 advanced placement courses, and we offer 8 college-level courses. In addition to what we're able to offer within the building, we also send 42 students to the Ulster County BOCES Career and Tech Center. This is for students who are in grades 11 and 12. Students typically spend a half a day at the tech center. And those 42 students right now are participating. They're dispersed among 22 different vocational programs, and I listed those out on the slide for you on slide 8. We also have 3 students who are attending the New Visions pre-university program. This is typically for grade 12 students, and also those students spend half a day at various sites, some at the Career and Tech Center, others right over at Ulster Community College. But these 3 students are participating in the New Visions Health program, the robotics and engineering, and also in the music audio engineering program. So there's really a lot for students within our master schedule to partake in. Our counselors do an amazing job trying to satisfy requests. We're able to honor about 91% of the requests that students actually give us when they're looking to take courses each year, or at least for this year was about 91%. We also do a really nice job trying to figure out what courses should run, which courses we need to stagger. So we might alternate a course in each year to try to make sure that we could offer it and give students the opportunities that they're looking for. In addition to the academics, we provide an amazing number of opportunities after school. I've listed for you guys on slide 10 all of the different athletics and teams that students are able to participate on. In addition to all those sports, we also have 23 high school clubs that are up and running right now, and we're probably going to be adding a few more in the very near future. But it's also a very rich offerings. One of the programs that we brought back, which is really an after-school program, is a community mentor program. We had to take a 2-year pause on the program due to COVID and COVID restrictions. What I put on that slide for you is pretty much the advertisement that was provided. The community mentor program is a great opportunity for students to pursue their interests and work alongside someone within the community in that field. So right now we have 19 students who submitted applications. We've been able to secure 18 placements. As soon as we have everything solidified, I will be bringing to the Board of Education all the independent contract retainers because each of the mentors within the community could either opt to take a stipend or waive their stipend. But that's all approved through the Board of Education, and you'll have that whole list hopefully by next board meeting or the following meeting. What we do is we make sure, and Kay Goldbeck is the one who's really running this program, we make sure that after the students submit their interests, we find those mentors within our community, but then she also goes out and visits them and makes sure that it's going to be a great fit. But this is really a great way for our kids to participate within the community in which they live, and we really try to keep it as close to home as possible. And they range anywhere from, you know, working in a dentist's office to architecture to, I mean, you name it. Whatever interests the students, somehow Kay finds a mentor that's willing to take them. I also wanted to talk about something else that I'm really proud of, is the fact that we have an amazing student support staff. Earlier today, I was at a countywide meeting, actually it was multiple counties, on risk assessments, and I listened to what some of the schools had to offer their students, and I can say that looking at what Onteora does for our students is absolutely amazing. We are generously staffed in that area. At the high school alone, we have 4 school counselors, 2 full-time social workers, 2 full-time psychologists. We also have a school resource officer, which I can't say enough about. The bond that our SRO has formed with our students pays off in so many different ways. It could be a whole separate presentation. In the area of social emotional learning, we are ahead of a lot of districts. High school is always a little bit of a challenge to implement SEL, especially with doing with SEL circles. But as of this month, we will have 20 high school faculty members fully trained to deliver SEL circles. Our plan is to deliver these circles in 9th and 10th grade. And we're going to convene circles probably first week of November. So we're very excited to be able to do that. If you remember, last year we only did the 9th grade. At the end of the year, based on student feedback, they really wanted to continue it into 10th grade, which is really nice to hear. So we've increased our pool, and we're going to do it both at the 9th and 10th grade level. We were also the board, and our superintendent was really generous in allowing us to have a teacher to do a part-time teacher on special assignment, and that's in the area of responsible online behavior. I could tell you, as of today, our teacher has been in every 9th and 10th grade social studies class, 8th, 9th, and 10th grade social studies class at least once. There's a rotating schedule, and we're going to continue with that program. We also have 2 new counselors being trained in the Prime for Life program. We will have 4 staff in total who will be fully certified and trained. Prime for Life is, they call it a drug and alcohol reduction prevention program. It's really meant to take a look at risk factors and take a look at students who may be at risk and intervene sooner than later. Other than that, I just want to let you know of a couple of things that you're going to be hearing about in the near future. One is the Seal of Civic Readiness. We did apply to the state to be able to offer the Seal of Civic Readiness over the summer, and that was approved. Our social studies department is working with guidance to finalize the plan. We do believe that we will be issuing that seal to several students this year, and there's going to be a whole packet that you're going to receive. It's going to be very similar to the Seal of Biliteracy, which has been a very successful program at the high school. And also pretty soon, I had to end it on something that wasn't but pretty soon we will be announcing all of our plans for the high school musical. So stay tuned for that, because that'll be coming to the board pretty soon. So I just wanted to do like a really quick overview, because each of these items could probably be a separate presentation, but I'm really proud of what we've been able to offer and to continue to offer, and I really thank you guys for your support. It means a lot to the students, and our students are benefiting from it. So with that, I say thank you, and if you have any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Edelman? Trustee Story?
Hello. About the seal of, that's loud, a seal of readiness. Over the summer when I was at the Rural Schools Conference, they had the woman from SED who was in charge of that, and she said that she sees SED making this mandatory within the next couple of years for all high school kids. So I'm glad we're already starting on that and getting forward with it. And she talked about how the seal of readiness could replace one of the Regents exams, one of the social studies Regents exam. So there's discussions with that. My question about the circles, what about the 11th and 12th graders? Why aren't we offering circles for them?
So it becomes a little bit of a challenge to do 11th and 12th grade just because of the nature of their schedules and the BOCES factor. You know, our hope is that we'll be putting our teachers through additional training to tackle various topics. So the students, the students will have had circles all through elementary school, through the middle school level, and then obviously through 9th and 10th for the transition years. But we just don't see the ability to be able to do circles at the 11th and 12th, at least at this time.
Anyone else? Trustee Lynch?
Thank you, Mr. Edelman. This was really helpful. I really appreciate the time you put into it. I'm just curious about your comments around student enrollment. Is there anything the board could do to support you in thinking about what's keeping families from attending the high school?
Yeah, I don't really have an answer for that. I mean, you could get more students here, but I don't know how you would do that. I just think that how you could help is maybe not with the increasing our student enrollment, but just being open to some of the creativity that we're going to need to put forth in order to continue some of these great programs. So we may have to look at some things like, maybe we can't offer all these AP courses. Maybe we're going to have to do some online, options for students who desire to take these courses and we just can't offer it. So all those come at a cost. So support it in that area would be great. But we are going to have to think outside the box if we're going to maintain what we have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Well, I want to thank you and commend you because for being the smallest school in the district, we are certainly the liveliest. And our kids come out of this district with an incredible wealth of knowledge that really prepares them for college. And I want to thank you for your leadership on that. At some point, I'd love to get Mr. Harkin in here to talk about the TASA position because I think with so many new board members, not everyone may be familiar with what he's doing. But thank you for spearheading that. I think it's vitally important in 2022-23. If nobody else has any questions, Principal Edelman? All right, thank you so much, Principal Edelman.
Thank you.
Before you go, we're going to do item 4.01.
Should we go ahead and do the resolution, Mr. Edelman, and then you can tell us a little bit about Mr. Smith?
Sure.
Okay.
So the recommended action is that the following named instructional personnel having served a period of probationary status consistent with the education law of the state of New York and provisions of the Commissioner's regulations and having received continuing satisfactory evaluations of performance is hereby recommended by the Superintendent of Schools for approval for tenure status. With a probationary period of 1/14/2019 to 1/13/2023, certified as a school counselor, Sam Smith hereby receives tenure on 1/14/2023. May I have a first, please? Trustee Raimondo, second. Trustee Story, all in favor. Questions or comments? No? All in favor?
That's all right.
Why don't we let Mr. Edelman speak before we vote? How's that?
So let me bring Sam up here first because, come on up here. Let them look at you. And then I could talk about you. So we're really fortunate to have Mr. Smith as a school counselor at the middle and high school. Mr. Smith always comes to work with a great attitude. He maintains positive relationships with his students and is seen as a good resource to our faculty and staff. When speaking to him about his students, it's clear that he truly knows his students well and he wants only the best for them. He has demonstrated many times that he'll advocate for his students while still holding them responsible for their actions. Mr. Smith always provides students with sound advice, from assisting with personal issues to providing them with guidance about their post-secondary outcomes. His bilingual skills have come in handy on multiple occasions. In fact, I think I've taken advantage of that a few times. He's been instrumental with our implementation of the SEL curriculum at the high school, and he is a trained SEL circle facilitator. Mr. Smith's skills are greatly appreciated, and he's definitely an asset to the Onteora Middle and High School. For these reasons and more, we strongly recommended that Sam Smith be considered for tenure, and we thank you and we congratulate you. Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
I probably want to go through and shake each board member's hands.
May I have a first? Trustee Wallace, second. Trustee Hemingway Lynch, all in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. The presentation by the Director of Food Services needs to be rescheduled, so we're going to move on to item 5.02, which is a presentation by the Assistant Superintendent for Business, Monica LeClaire.
Thank you very much. We're actually going to tag team this between myself, Superintendent McLaren, and Assistant Superintendent Laffin and Assistant Superintendent Allison. I'm sure you understand with BOCES, we all have a little piece of it, depending on what the service is. So this was very much so a collaborative effort. So Ulster BOCES is located in New Paltz, for those that don't know that, and, well, I should say New Paltz and Port Ewan, I'm sorry. Not Ulster BOCES. Ulster? Oh, yeah, there are a couple other schools. Anyway, I deal with New Paltz, so the main offices. So I thought I'd start with a mission statement that Ulster BOCES has on their website so you can get a little understanding of you know, what they see their role being in education. The next slide shows all of the component school districts that are part of Ulster BOCES. So it's us, Ellenville, Kingston, Highland, New Paltz, Rondout, Saugerties, and Walk Hill. On the next page, just a kind of a few, call them BOCES tidbits. So we receive what's called BOCES aid on eligible expenses that we spend. So the key word is eligible. So not everything that we get from BOCES is aidable. For example, the biggest piece that is not aided is if there's a salary, anything over the first $30,000, I believe. Thank you. Anything over $30,000 is not aided. So I'm sure you can imagine that most people that work at BOCES make more than $30,000. So we only get 30% of the aid up to that first $30,000. So that's why if you take how much we spent and multiply it by 38%, you are not going to get what our BOCES aid is. So BOCES aid for all the school districts is based on any one of three numbers. There is a minimum of 36%, so no matter what your other numbers are, you will always get at least 36%. There's this number that's called ARWADA, and it's kind of at the bottom, residents weighted average daily attendance. For Onteora, our ARWADA is 0. So we will never get any aid based on ARWADA. And then there's millage, which is what we're currently at, which is 38% versus the minimum of 36. So in order to have anything through BOCES, in order for it to be eligible for BOCES aid, it also has to be shared between at least 2 districts within the component schools. So if we say we want something, we would like BOCES to provide it for us, it's only going to be aided if at least one other school is interested in doing that as well. They also required to return any surplus funds to our schools, so they are not allowed to, have fund balance to make a profit, so to speak. If we give them $1 million and a program costs $900,000, they have to give us that $100,000 back, and that's what's in what's called the surplus. And then, even if we didn't purchase any services from BOCES, we would still be required to pay the administrative and capital costs, just because we are within the Ulster BOCES circle. So, and because our RWADA is 0, we actually don't receive any BOCES aid on the capital costs. So the next slide shows our historical BOCES expenditures. So as you can see, from 2017 to current, our aid is still in the mid to upper 30% range, with 38 being the last few years. We spend roughly between $3.5 to $4.5 million. The $5 million that you see under 22-23, you have to understand that's the budget. So what happens is that we say this is what we're going to purchase. Depending on what happens during the year, we may have kids come, may have special ed kids leave. We may have programs that we don't spend what we think we're going to spend. And so that's why the budget is usually higher than our actual expenditures. The BOCES aid is actually based on the prior year's expenses. So what we spent last year in BOCES, the $4.4 million, is the aid that we're going to get this year, the $620. Now, the problem is that they tell us we're going to get $620,000 in April when they do the legislative budget. Now it's April. We haven't finished the school year yet. So depending on what happens, we may get the $620, we may get a little less, we may get a little more. It depends on what happens the last few months of the school year. So it's always the following year that we get the aid and the surplus, or the BOCES refund. So that's why we try very hard to kind of balance what the state says we're going to get in knowing what we're really planning on spending. So that's why sometimes when you see the revenue projections, the aid that I may have in the budget may actually be less than what the state says that we're going to get, or it might be more. If I think, oh yeah, we're going to buy a lot of computers, we're going to get 38% on computers, that sort of thing. So it would be nice if it were always exact. It's never exact. So for our 22-23 BOCES budget for the administrative and capital, you can see we spend $436,686 on administrative and $66,360 on capital. So as I mentioned, that we will spend no matter what. If we did nothing else with BOCES, we would still have to send them that almost $500,000. The administrative is where they carry all of their retiree health insurance. So all of the staff that retired from BOCES, the component districts are responsible for paying their health insurance, just like we're responsible for paying the retiree health insurance for our own staff. And so our portion of that is covered in that administrative cost.
I just wanted to interject, and Monica very rightly has a note here that says for all BOCES retirees, including the Mid-Hudson Regional Information Center retirees, and it's set up the way it is required to be set up, but I feel, and all of the other Ulster superintendents and business officials feel, that it is unfair because the Mid-Hudson Regional Information Center actually services multiple counties. So there are districts in Dutchess County, in Sullivan County, who are purchasing services through the Mid-Hudson Regional Information Center, which is a kind of a subset of Ulster BOCES. But they do not have to shoulder the cost of the retirees from the Mid-Hudson Regional Information Center. That is entirely covered by Ulster districts. Yeah, it's completely unfair, and they're not doing anything incorrectly, but the way that the system is set up is really unfair to the county where the BOCES resides. if you are the county where there's a BOCES that houses the Mid-Hudson or whatever, there are RICs, there are regional information centers throughout the state as well, but not every BOCES has a regional information center, and so only the counties that house the RICs have to shoulder the cost of those retirees.
So as far as the student services go, as Mr. Edelman mentioned, we have the career and technical programs. We are budgeted to spend almost $675,000 this year. So those are for our 42 kids that are in CTE, as well as our 3 students that are in New Visions. P-TECH, we have 1 student currently in P-TECH at $17,340. The one thing that to realize is that a student that is going to P-TECH, it's a 6-year commitment for these students. So it is a very it's a very it's a strong commitment for a student that wants to go to P-TECH.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interject again, but just to be clear, that 6-year commitment is the 4 years of high school plus 2 additional years. So it's beyond what would normally be considered the high school career.
Yeah, they get their associates. Yeah, they would end up with their associates after that 6th year. That's one of the bonuses. We have an alternative education program that's called the Phoenix Academy, which we're projected to spend $127,500. We have 5 students there. And then in our special ed programs, that is probably our largest piece. That's close to $2.4 million. We have 25 students in various programs with obviously various services. And the one thing to note there is we do not get BOCES aid on that. So that is a different type of aid. It is called excess cost aid. So that aid formula runs a little differently. So we are told by the state we have a kind of a floor of how much we spend per student. Onto ours is very high, I'm sure you can imagine. Anything above that floor, the state will kick in about 25%. So our floor is around 50, 60,000. I should have checked, I did not, but it's around 50 or 60,000. So if we have a student that costs us $100,000, the first 50, 60 is ours, we have to pay it, and then we get about 25% over the difference between that and the actual cost of BOCES. So unfortunately, because we are considered a wealthy school, we do not get the same amount of high cost aid that a lot of other schools get. Distance learning, which is really just kind of our virtual summer school, and then there's some home instruction supplementals that students can do. That runs us a little shy of $20,000. TTP, 134,000. And please, if you have questions about any one of these, it's probably easier if you ask, and then like in these, it would be Amanda could answer. And then our itinerant services, the visually impaired, deaf, hard of hearing, and then we also get consultation as well as direct services through that. Okay, so our career and technical programs, we currently have 54 11th and 12th graders enrolled. So looking back historically, we've had between 52 and 69 students attend each year. So we considering our class sizes, I think we send quite a few kids to CTE, and I know that quite a few kids, have gone on to do many wonderful things. I know a few of the kids myself, having had my own kids go through here. So some of the programs that I know Mr. Edelman gave you the whole list. This is kind of just the ones that stood out as far as where most of our kids kind of seem to lean towards. And now the instructional services piece, this is the piece that kind of flows through Assistant Superintendent Laffin's office. So these are our staff developments at $22,480. Our content specialists, we have a math content specialist from BOCES that comes in district. We also have an instructional technology specialist that we have that comes through the Model Schools COSER. Educational media, library automation, school improvement, and then our interscholastic sports coordination, and that is we pay BOCES, and BOCES then pays all of the officials, which is lovely because I would not want to have to pay an official after every single game.
And when you've got 4 or 5.
Exactly. So it's very nice that BOCES kind of takes the lead on paying them, and then we just pay BOCES. And they do give us every time they, so we make sure that we're only paying for the games that we actually had. Management services, so these are the ones that kind of come out of my office. So the health, safety, and risk management at 33,853 is a, personally, I think, one of the best coasters that we have. It's very difficult when you're a small school to be an expert in everything. So BOCES has a department that is kind of a go-to for schools. So if we have an issue with air quality in the classroom, if we have issues with water quality or lead, we call them. They can come out, they can check the air quality in a room. They can see if a teacher says, oh, I think I've got mold, they can check for that. And we have used them quite a lot over the years. Again, we do have aging buildings. We did notice issues, and when we do, we fix it. And so they definitely are worth it. And they also do our annual fire inspections. We have the transportation safety certification and training. Again, it's another another thing that we can use when we need to train our monitors, when we need extra support. We can go to BOCES and they could help us. Records management, they help us with records retention, updating how long something has to be kept, so that we're not constantly, kind of similar to the policies, we don't have to always make sure we go out and find it. They send it to us when something changes. It's a very nice thing because there's a lot going on. The contract personnel data analysis management planning service, that is some of our software. It's our Forecast 5, which is a data analysis tool, which kind of allows us to look at some of our expenses, some of our things, and also compare it to other schools, which is nice. Super eval, which you guys know, and then contract analysis to, again, see where we are in the county and that sort of thing. The Public Information Service, you guys kind of know what that is about. We went through that already before. Cooperative purchasing, BOCES will do bidding for us for all of the component districts, and we have the option of kind of tagging on. So basically getting bigger bang for the buck because we have more schools that are bidding for the same thing. Oil is a big one, propane, things like that. They will bid for all of the component districts, so we have more leverage with some of these vendors. Fortunately, with oil, it's still high. The Employee Assistance Program, I think, is another lovely thing that BOCES offers. It's a program where our staff can reach out if they have questions, concerns, if they have their own things that they're going through. They can call this program. They can call them, they can email them, and they can get some help if they want. So it's a nice program that they offer. So as Victoria was saying, the Mid-Hudson Regional Information Center is kind of an offshoot of BOCES. And besides Ulster County, Dutchess County, Sullivan County, and I believe Orange County. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Also subscribe to it. And this is really all of our software, hardware, connectivity, cyber monitoring. This is where we get the Raptor, the visitor management system, all of our testing, scoring, reporting, all of this, and pretty much anything that has to do with a computer comes through the RIC. All of our financial software, our special ed software, all of that, they're the ones that support us with that. And as I'm sure you can imagine that it's quite an undertaking for them supporting all these softwares and stuff. So, and that is about it. Anything anyone's dying to know? Yes.
PTEC stands for?
I have no idea.
Can you tell us what it does, PTEC?
PTEC is a very specific program that BOCES started maybe 8 or 9 years ago. And it is meant to identify students who are at risk of not completing high school. And it's a very different structure than what we have here in the high school. And it's based on forming a lot of partnerships and working with private industry. And students are identified in their 8th grade year, so they never actually hit our high school. So, but it is sort of a very specific program. It's not necessarily the correct opportunity for a really creative student in terms of the arts. For the right student, it's a really interesting program and a great opportunity, but it's also a very large commitment when you're looking at an 8th grader and saying, so you're going to spend 6 years in this program, and when your friends go away to college, you're still going to be here participating in this program. It's a really big commitment to ask of that student. But, I mean, it's really interesting. You know, I know, just because I happen to have a husband who's in banking, and as a local community bank, they actually partner with P-TECH every year. And, you know, I know that they have that with different industry leaders in the area. And I think their other goal is to help students find ways to local employment and to really expose the employers to the amazing students that are here. So it's an interesting program.
I did find out that P-TECH stands for Pathways in Technology.
And I think if we can get a BOCES tour soon, you would be able to see all their programs, and this one in particular, the kids are really great at presenting.
I just have a question under instructional services, the school improvement. Could you just let us know what that means or is for?
Certainly, I'll take that one. So school improvement is support for any state initiatives, such as anytime there's new requirements from the state, in particular rollouts of standards. There's things that are held at BOCES, and the county systems go and attend workshops there to help explain it, to support the structures of different rollouts. In addition, they host conferences and specialists on literacy data, leadership, their support for schools that are designated from the state based on performance. It's a variety of things. It's the idea that they can offer it collectively, and that it's an opportunity. Sometimes they can bring in really large national consultants, and districts can access that more affordably on a larger scale.
Anyone else? Trustee Hemingway.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is there any, and maybe this is a harder question, so forgive me, I'm just curious, like, are there things that BOCES provides that you wish we could take advantage of that we're not currently? I'm just curious as we think about, I mean, it's such a rich menu of opportunities, and I was just curious if there were other things we could consider.
So I think that's a great and hard question, but I think one of the things that is tricky right now is that we have a lot of different complex student needs. And we live in a pretty rural area, so it's sometimes hard to find all the services that you need. So one of the things that has gotten a little complicated is we have utilized services from other BOCES because they've just offered other additional instructional services or supports that we've been able to then access. So one of the things I'd love to see, and I've brought to BOCES, is seeing if we could partner with some of our other Ulster County districts to bring in some of these resources regionally, some of these consultants, some of these services, so we wouldn't have to cross-contract to other programs, because it just gets, it gets really confusing. And it would be nice to regionally offer it to our partners. So some of our work in MTSS and behavior supports and social emotional sports have been BOCES funded and aided, but have come from other BOCES because Ulster BOCES wasn't able to provide that. So I'd love to see us be able to support our local BOCES a bit more with trying to find some good resources for our students.
Thank you, Miss Allison. Anybody else? Questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Ms. LeClaire. I really appreciate all of that from the four of you. I think that BOCES is something that is both amazing and can be a little burdensome, I would imagine, for our administrators. I think that Ontiora does a great job of taking advantage of the CTE programs in particular. I love seeing the buses leave in the morning and coming back in the afternoon, and the kids always look like they've had a very full day. And I think that anything that we can do to support our kids in having a career-ready skill set when they leave the building is awesome. So I appreciate all the work that you guys put into making sure that they're able to do that. If nobody else has any questions, we will move on to item 6.01. The Board of Education hereby accepts the minutes of October 11th, 2022. May I have a first, please? Trustee Wallace, second. Trustee Story. Questions or comments? All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. And item 7.01, the student representative on the board, Noelle Crandell, will give her report.
Hello. Oh, that's like really loud. Recently in the high school student government, we formed a committee for the Outside Initiative. We've had a little bit of meeting scheduling errors and technicalities, but student government hopes to meet more frequently in between the sports seasons and are currently planning our Association of Student Government meeting. Throughout the high school and middle school, it's been quite busy. Our athletics are thriving. The varsity field hockey team is actually currently in their semifinals game against Rondout. The boys varsity soccer team had their sectionals game earlier today at Bard, as well as varsity cross country will compete in their sectionals meet on Thursday. Both the middle school and high school yearbooks are very active. The middle school yearbook is hosting a Halloween dance this Friday. Spanish Club and French Club are both also hosting Halloween movies this coming week. Senior portrait retakes are on the 27th. This is the final date to get them done. Many students are rehearsing for their production of Romeo and Juliet, as well as many clubs continue to meet weekly. That's all I have. Thank you.
That was a great report, Noelle. Thank you so much. Does anybody have questions for Ms. Crandell? Trustee Story?
Have you guys thought about recording your meetings? Because I know my son mentioned this to me this afternoon in between him running home from football practice, and because he also goes to career and tech half day, that he can't be part of this stuff. So he'd like to be able to notice or see what goes on in the meetings and know what is.
Yeah, our meetings are primarily at like lunch or after school, and there is like you can come and sit. We do have like a public be heard section. You're also like, our meetings aren't closed. I think our goal was to work with the Talon to kind of produce kind of like a monthly like what we're doing and like just an update, because I think there is so much like there should be more transparency and like connectivity with what we're doing. Yeah, I think that was like the Talon, but I will consider definitely recording those and like posting those.
Because that would be, interesting for also for the adults to see too, if we want to watch them, to see what's going on. And I know my son, like I said, goes to career and tech half day and he does sports, so he would enjoy to be part of it. But between sports and career and tech, when you guys are meeting, he's not here. So it opens up an opportunity, if you record these, for students who aren't in the buildings at these times to see what's going on during it.
Yeah, definitely. And on a class basis, I know that I've been communicating with the other presidents on holding like class meetings to kind of just convey fundraising and like a lot of more event stuff, just because I think there is also like a lack of connectivity and unity on that front as well. which those will also be open to public and open to the students.
Thanks.
That's great, Noelle. Thank you. I think your idea to host class meetings is a terrific one. It's a really good way to bring everybody together and kind of get everybody on the same page. Let us know how that goes. Does anybody else have questions for Ms. Crandell? No? Okay. Item 8.01, the superintendent will report district news.
Good evening. So October is National Principals Month. National Principals Month honors principals for their significant impact on the success and well-being of our nation's students. Certainly all of our principals deserve recognition and appreciation for the hard work they do every day, all year round. They consistently advocate for our students and work diligently to ensure that the children of this school community thrive. So I want to take a special thank you to all of Onteora's principals. I'm sorry they're not here. Our October 19th conference day was a successful day of professional learning. I appreciated the dedication of our faculty and staff in participating in all of the work, and I want to thank Assistant Superintendent Laffin and the entire cabinet for putting in the time to plan such a meaningful day. We had good news on Friday afternoon. Our Astor liaison contacted us to let us know that they have hired an individual, and they are working on clearances and onboard training. So once that process is complete, they will be in touch to set up our next steps to get the program up and running. They did warn that it may take a few weeks because this is someone who is entirely new to their organization. The Scarecrow Fest in Woodstock was a really fun community event. I was very thankful to not be the only judge in the Scarecrow contest. So there were 3 judges, and final decisions on awarding prizes were not mine alone. But there were some incredibly creative scarecrows submitted by both children and adults. There were 5 categories for the judging. There were scary, traditional, Woodstock, funny, and green. The children's entries were judged separately from the adults, but some of those kids' entries were incredibly fantastic. I hope everyone does have a fun and safe Halloween next week. In terms of the board goal that was adopted at the last meeting, I did share with all of the cabinet the PowerPoint presentation and the study that was done by Dr. Bachman in the 2019-2020 school year. Some of you may recall that in support of the board's goal to create a long-term plan, Dr. Bachman was engaged to do a grade configuration and building utilization study. He spent several months with us studying our district and engaging with stakeholders in order to create this study. He presented at the second meeting in January in 2020, and you may recall that we were not able to really spend time reviewing the study because we then very shortly shut down. So I want to use this as the starting point in the discussion with our shared decision-making committee, but I did want to point out that anyone at all who would like to review the information can find it on our website. So if you go to the home page and you look at the Our District tab on the drop-down, choose Plans and Reports, and it is in the report section. And the information that's there is the full study, the PowerPoint presentation that he did, but also the recorded presentation from that board meeting. So you can actually hear Dr. Bachman presenting to the board at that time. And I did want to say that Mrs. Downs was sending her regrets. She was not feeling well this afternoon, so she could not be here tonight, but she will absolutely be at the next meeting. And I just wanted to note, I'm not sure if everyone is aware of how lucky we are to have such a skilled chef in charge of feeding our students. Mrs. Downs is a culinary graduate, and she is absolutely passionate about providing our students with nutritious and appetizing food. I'm sure that no other district has what we have. And she did send a sample of the maple cinnamon roasted chickpeas as a little treat for us, but she will definitely have additional items at the next meeting. And that's all I have.
Does anyone have questions for Superintendent McLaren? No? Thank you very much, Superintendent. The board will report district news. Does anyone have district news to report? Trustee Story?
Last Monday, I was the voting delegate for us. And let me tell you, it was a very long evening till after 10 o'clock. We were going through these resolutions. NYSBA sent everybody the full package of what it is, so I'm not going to go through our 43 resolutions. I will mention that the proposed resolution 34 that we sent in, that was discussed and we failed. That was the one that says resolved that the New York State School Boards Association support legislation that requires every child in New York State aged 0 to 21 be covered under free under Child Health Plus program. And that one was that was not put forth by NYSBA, but it was still discussed. And we discussed that one, and it fell. There was 43% for yes, and 57% said no for that. So that failed. There was no discussion on the other resolution that we put in, and the other one that we did about the pre-K passed. So it was a very long evening, I will say, because I had to sign on at 3:30, from 3:30 till 10 o'clock. So.
Thank you for doing that, Trustee Story. One would think that with so many bright minds across New York State that they could come up with another way of doing this that didn't require 8-hour commitment on your part.
I'll tell you, it's usually done, they've done them in person, and usually this doesn't take that long, but also last year there was only 15 resolutions. This year there was 43. So this is the most resolutions NYSBA's ever put forth in one setting. Some of the feedback that I heard is that other people did not like that many resolutions put forth because you have to discuss them, and then when you start discussing them, it goes for 10 minutes, and then you have to vote if you want to extend the time to discuss this, and you have to first and second it, and because we're remote, they have to get populated up. They have to add you as a admin onto it. It's a lot of technical stuff, and there is some times where they're trying to add people on and it's not on screen, and so it was interesting, and I don't know what they're planning on doing next year, but if it's going to be back in person. The one thing that I did like is that in years past, pre-COVID, the business meeting was always on the last day of the convention, so that meant that anybody who was a voting delegate could not go to any of the sessions on the last day. And with that, at a certain point, you have to have 200 people for a quorum for NYSBA. So once you get below that point, you have to shut the meeting down, and it's over. So with it being virtual, people actually stayed on. However, other times people leave when we've done it in the different places. Sometimes the meeting's been over by noon. It just goes depending upon how many resolutions and whatnot's put forth. So, but it was a very long evening.
Well, thank you very much for doing that so that the rest of us didn't have to. Anyone else with district news, board district news? Trustee Bishop?
I'll try to be brief. I met recently with our BOCES representative, Robert Curran, and he meets each year, tries to meet each year with the board officers. Since Emily was, having a baby, I met with him, and we had been trying to schedule a meeting since sometime in the summer. So just some of the things that he brought really to the meeting, and I took notes. He wanted us to know that the major capital project, the huge construction project that the board voted on in the spring. All school boards in Ulster County that are component districts of Ulster BOCES, sorry, my phone is ringing, buzzing, is on target. There was a conversation, though, about whether or not they would be building or improving their current properties in Port Ewan and the other properties that are involved in that project, or now a possible conversation about the old IBM facility at I-87, the I-87 park in I don't know if that's Kingston or if that's Lake Katrine. Yeah, in Lake Katrine. So, you know, it's just a consideration. I think that, you know, I imagine that some of the districts would have concern about that because those long-term lease projects, you know, are not necessarily, and even in the future, going to be owned by BOCES, whereas the property that they have now, the facilities are their property in Port Ewan. I mean, he just talked about a little bit about the reality of supply chain issues and potential slowing down of the project once it actually gets started, but you know, we're not there yet. They are starting to order and receive some of the materials that they'll need, so in advance of the project starting. He said that their special ed programming needs are increasing across the county, and that their program locations are currently stretched very thin. That BOCES is grateful for the space that they are able to lease now at the Mount Marion School in Saugerties. They have a 5-year renewable lease, which also includes the support of a Saugerties administrator, a custodial staff, and kitchen staff. So those are staff that BOCES doesn't have to hire themselves. There's been a conversation about the increase of special education needs, and BOCES has considered that this might be directly related to early literacy instruction, and the instructional services staff believe that better literacy programs would alleviate some of those special needs. And I don't know, you know, what more will be divulged about that, or what more we'll learn about that, but just a conversation. The new Therapeutic Transitions Program, TTP, is a huge success. That is a program that supports students that are transitioning back to their public schools from either medical or a psychiatric hospitalization. And like I said, it's really doing very well, and students are very successful. Their Life Skills program is a huge success. It has been since it started. That is the program that supports students with intellectual and or multiple disabilities. The Phoenix program, and I'm trying to remember now exactly what the Phoenix program is. The Phoenix program is not a special education program. It is I believe it's an alternative education program for high school students. And last year they graduated 8 students, and they consider that a huge success. The CTE programs, the Career in Tech programs, remain very stable and very popular. I think there's a discussion among BOCES that BOCES administrators that the Ontario School District doesn't send a lot of students to the Career in Tech program, but based on Principal Edelman's report and also Assistant Superintendent Leclerc's, 20% or more of our 11th and 12th graders are attending the half-day Career in Tech programs at BOCES, and I think that, you know, I think they need to just kind of take a look at our overall numbers before they think that we're not sending a lot of kids. We really are, and they're doing very well. The adult education program is expanding under new leadership, and they're very excited about that. I guess that'll be more to come with more information. We also discussed PTech, and PTech does stand for Pathways in Technology, and I actually Googled it while we were having that conversation a little earlier. It is a public-private partnership preparing students for skills in high-tech skills jobs in technology, healthcare, and finance. And that is another program we talked about a little bit more earlier. It's a 6-year commitment that an 8th grader has to make. And then at the end of their 4 high school years, they do receive a high school diploma, and then they continue and do 2 years of college, and they do come out of that program with an associate's degree. Again, that's a program that is used very successfully in some of the districts in our county, but not all, and certainly not with in a school with the lower enrollment numbers at the high school level that we have. Dr. Corey, our BOCES superintendent, is going to be retiring, and his resignation date is effective December 31st. I believe he's retiring. Yeah. So his date of his official date of, well, Bob called it resignation for the purpose of retirement is December 31st. So BOCES is activating a search, and temporarily another BOCES superintendent will be placed in a shared position supervising our BOCES. And Bob just also mentioned how important it is, obviously, for our Onteora Board trustees to understand the scope of BOCES programming, ranging from special ed programs to adult ed. And he strongly recommends that we arrange for a tour. And when we do make that arrangement, they request that we do it as a group, that, trustees don't kind of just go individually, because it is they do have a lot of planning to put that together. And that's my report. Compliments of Bob Curran.
Thank you, Trustee Bishop, and thank you, Mr. Curran. We've had a lot of great information about BOCES tonight, and I think we should definitely move forward on trying to schedule a tour. I can't see Amanda, but maybe that's something that you can help me get set up. Does anybody have questions for Trustee Bishop? Anyone else have board district news? Okay, item 11.01. Well, actually, 10.01. I'd like to acknowledge the public be heard comments from the last meeting from Mr. Neil Brownell. And okay. The board appreciates hearing from the public, including students, on any agenda or non-agenda item. Please understand that by our adopted parliamentary procedure, the board can't engage in discussion or answer questions during public be heard. Please know that we hear you and take all of your comments into consideration. The board does reserve the right to correct any inaccuracies or misinformation during public be heard. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, be civil, and do not name any particular individuals or promote any commercial ventures or products. People wishing to express individual student or personnel concerns can bring them to the superintendent's attention in private. Mr. Brownell, would you like to speak?
Is that better? Okay, thank you. This is dedicated to Tommy and Dalton, 2 kids that I knew right out of high school who committed suicide.
I don't know how you identify obscenity, but I know it when I see it.
You want me to tell you what's obscene? It's obscene when our kids get out of school and their lives are destroyed within just a few minutes of getting out of school. They're taken advantage of by common thieves. And you know what else is obscene? It's obscene that these common thieves that call themselves representatives of our government is teaching our kids through you that our government is the boss, when in reality, our kids will be the boss in the very near future. And the other thing that brought me here, the obscenity, it's obscene that our schools across this nation are teaching our kids the lies that these thieves are teaching. Help me. Lies cannot stand. I have taught you that. The truth will come out. I have shown you lies that are mathematical lies. All you have to do is add 1 + 1 + 1. And you say, doggone it, they lied to me. I taught you that. I taught you that right here in this school, my son was taught that Abraham Lincoln had slaves. One of the greatest Americans that has ever lived. You're teaching our kids lies. There's only one reason that I can figure, there's only 2 reasons that I can figure that you would teach lies. 1, you deliberately want to hurt our kids. 2, you don't know you're teaching lies. And because I do know these con artists, these thieves, I honestly don't think that you think they're lies. I think you think they're true. So I've came here to start teaching you how to see through these con artist lies that are destroying our country. If you continue to teach the lies after you know they're lies, that would be obscene. But just because I'm standing here in front of you, in front of that camera and that camera, I am showing 33 million households how they can teach their kids to see through your lies. So if you think that me standing here is obscene, get ready for a lot of obscenity, because I'm going no place. Neil Brownell, the crazy inventor, fighting for our kids. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard for public be heard? No? Nobody else here? Okay. The board's going to take a 5-minute break. Okay. Item 13.01. The Board of Education approves the intermunicipal agreement with Kingston City School District for boys swimming and authorizes the superintendent to sign such an agreement. May I have a first, please? Trustee Wallace, second. Trustee Hemingway Lynch. Questions or comments? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. The Board of Education hereby approves a revised corrective action plan for the Comptroller's audit dated May 27, 2022 as attached. May I have a first, please? Trustee Bishop, second. Trustee Ramondo. Questions or comments? All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. The superintendent recommends acceptance of a grant totaling $9,280 in cash from the Catskill Watershed Corporation to be used for the Bennett Intermediate School 5th grade environmental trip around 25. The superintendent recommends approval to increase the 2022-2023 budget per the following donation. May I have a first, please? Trustee Bishop, second. Trustee Story. Questions or comments? Thank you. Trustee Wallace is going to abstain from this because he's had business dealings with the Catskill Watershed Corporation. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Okay, so that is 5 yes with 1 abstention. Am I in the right place? 1305? Yeah? No. Okay, the superintendent recommends acceptance of a donation totaling $250 cash as a scholarship award for the graduating class. The superintendent recommends approval of the following donations. $250 from Kathleen and David Lee. May I have a first, please? Trustee Wallace, second. Trustee Story. Questions or comments? All in favor? Thank you so much to Kathleen and David Lee and to everyone, including the Catskill Watershed Corporation, for supporting our district. And okay. This is the second reading and adoption of Policy 1512, Public Be Heard. Motion to adopt Policy 1512. May I have a first? Trustee Bishop. Second, Trustee Ramondo. Questions and comments? All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. All right, let's talk about goals and let's get it done. So we had already approved Goal 1, but there were some questions around it. So we have 2 options. We can rescind the goal that we had already created and approve a version of the new one that I sent today. I'm going to ask that if that is what we do, that we get that done tonight. What I don't want is to leave here with revisions to a goal that we've already approved. So that would be my ask. So we can either keep it as it was, or we can take a look at the changes that were made to goal number 1 to kind of address some of the concerns that we had at our last meeting. Does anybody have input other than, I know there are grammatical and spelling errors? What do we want to do? Trustee Wallace?
I would rescind and let us quickly, chat about, just hear it and then adopt potentially. That would be my wish. I mean, if I was.
Does anybody else have an opinion one way or the other? So the goal number 1 was just tweaked a little bit to acknowledge that the reason that we are including this information is because these are areas that have already been identified, and they were areas that were identified over the last couple of years as reasons why we are creating a long-term district-wide plan. And it also acknowledges that by the work that needs to be done with the community and with the district, there will probably be other issues that are identified moving forward. So it leaves room in there, and it also gives us an opportunity to quickly identify some measures of success. So how do we want to quantify this goal? How are we going to measure this goal? How will we know if we've achieved this goal? And it leaves room in there for that. And that would need to be, a quick statement of what is it that at the end of the year, if we've achieved this goal, how will we know? Does anybody have, Trustee Story?
Well, first of all, this is such a big goal that we're not going to achieve it in 1 year. So, and it's okay to not achieve it because there's so much work involved in this plan.
So I guess the question then would be, what would be measurable? So if achieving this goal for this year, we're not achieving the entirety of the goal because the goal is support the development. That is really the goal. But would it look like the formation of the board ad hoc committee? Would it look like at least 2 meetings with the community? Does it look like, hearing presentations from the superintendent? I hear from trustees that it's really important to them that we are measuring success. I understand that, and I understand, Trustee Story, your point as well. And I think in the past there have been board goals that are very fluid, and obviously this one needs to be fluid as well. But if we want to put some metric of success attached to this goal, what would that look like for trustees?
Honestly, my opinion is to turn around and actually be able to work on this goal and have these conversations, start from scratch at the beginning and work through that, and that knowing full well that this is going to be a multi-year process. This is not something that the board or the district can even do, I'd say not even in 2 years, because this is a big, hard, heavy lift for everybody that's going to be involved. I also, I'd like to take the word potential expansion of the middle school, because we need our 6th graders to come down here. We can't. Our administrators have already told us they need that for the success of our students. So there is no potential.
In the first goal that we did approve, it did say explore improving educational opportunities.
Trustee Wallace just said we were going to get rid of, I'm going off of the second
Right.
goal, where it says the potential expansion of the middle school to add 6th graders.
So just to be clear, you're seeking to get rid of the word potential, am I correct? Or the whole?
The potential, because...
Just the word potential, okay.
Yeah, because this can't be potential. It has to be, because our special ed students turn around and are disserviced because no special ed student can be in chorus, music, or band because of the constraints of the curriculum, because we're fitting 3 years of curriculum in a 2-year span. And if you need services, if a special ed student needs services, they can't get all of their required classes and still do chorus, band, or orchestra. And there's more stuff than just that, but...
So I think that the things that you are referring to, Trustee Story, are all true and all things that, the 3 of us have heard before. But I do think that there are board members who are not clear on why this needs to happen. So I think that the word explore, because it's our goal and not the district's goal, that includes our exploration and our understanding of the goal and the process, because you know that to be true. Cindy really knows that to be true. I know that to be true. And that is, what we've been taught over the last couple of years. But Trustee Wallace, Trustee Hemingway Lynch, Trustee Raimondo, and Trustee Taylor have not had that experience. So I'm just a little concerned. I agree with you, but I want to just be careful, of how we word this, because all we're doing is supporting the district, and the district needs to tell us what they need by doing the work that we're asking them to do, and then our job is to support them in getting it done. So I just want to be a little bit careful. I understand your point, and I support
But it
you.
also affects the high school too. So it's
It
not
does,
just the
yeah.
middle school,
That's kind of-
because this is, our high school principal has got the schedule set, has to be set a certain way. We may be able to go to block scheduling when we bring the 6th graders down. There's so many opportunities out there.
You're going to make people crazy. Let's let's not talk about block scheduling.
There's
Let's-
so many different opportunities out there when we turn around and bring the sixth graders down.
I hear you, and I validate what you're saying. I just think that it is a process, and I don't think that the Board of Education is prepared to say that this is something that has to happen. I think that that is something that our administrators need to work through, and how it would happen, and then for us to support them in that decision. So that would be my only. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I agree with you, and I would love to see what I think was wrong righted. I don't think that this works for our district. But I also know that there are going to be a lot of people in the community who have a lot of questions about how we're going to do this. So I want to make sure that we handle this appropriately. Trustee Wallace? Oh, next to you. Trustee Bishop, right next to you.
Yeah, I do strongly agree with Trustee Story. And I also think that because we've been talking about this for a long time and we're passionate about it, we're kind of like, full speed ahead on it. But I do think that we have new board trustees, we have a new middle school principal, and the parents of our younger students who haven't been privy to all the conversations that have happened over the years. Maybe we should leave it in there so that people do have a chance to study all the information that is brought to us, along with our new board members, as we, consider the potential.
I would also like to give the administrative staff an opportunity, and Superintendent McLaren and the assistant superintendents the opportunity to come to us and say, we're ready and this is what we want to do, knowing that they have our support in doing it, but without putting the pressure on them of saying it has to get done this year. So that would be another concern that I have.
I'm not saying the sixth grade's got to move down this year, but it's even in Dr. Bachman's report where he stated that the less amount of transitions between buildings is beneficial for the students.
Yeah. No, I've read the report. I agree with you.
I've sat here at board meetings where our administration has said to us, we need the sixth graders down here. Miss O'Connor, our former middle school principal, has said numerous times at that podium where how much more she could do and things could be changed and whatnot. But she was always handcuffed and tied because the sixth grade, she didn't have that extra year.
So I think that if you lose the word potential, you still, allow yourself enough wiggle room by saying you're supporting the development of the district's long-term district-wide plan. And so that gives you sort of, I think you could lose the word potential without, forcing it to be a goal that has to be done this year. And the other thing, I just make one other slight addition. I would add next to the shared decision-making committee right after that, PTAs should be just explicitly consulted with as we're, and we sort of left them out in the list. So hearing from PTAs would be a great thing too, in my opinion. And then adding a period, not a colon at the end. That's just.
A colon. Yeah, that was a space to leave what the concrete goals would be. I left it blank intentionally.
Trustee Sherry, could I ask a question? What is a board ad hoc committee?
It would be a committee of 3 board members, not 4, who were, brought together to kind of work a little more closely with administration on some of these decisions and receiving some of the information, and then functioning as a committee and bringing the information back to the board as a whole. That's really my understanding of how that would work.
Okay. And it would be like a cross-section. It doesn't necessarily have to be officers or a certain
No,
committee
it's
member
like-
of a
no,
certain standing
it's
committee or anything like that?
Just the same.
Whoever
I
can
mean,
volunteer the
my
time.
suggestion would be like, we start immediately, but that, there are 3 of us who are up for election this spring. So, the entire nature of the board could change at the end of this year, which is part of the goal process. Is like we're setting a goal that is for us, but 3 of us may not be here in the spring.
Actually, this board will change election night. That's in May, not in June,
What?
or
Well,
not July, because
Right, depending on who runs. Yeah.
Trustee Wallace and Trustee Taylor are only appointed into the next regularly scheduled vote. So,
Oh, forgive me. I was thinking November 8th is election night in my mind. Forgive me. I was like, what?
board elections.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
thank you.
And our
Thank you.
budget votes.
If both Trustee Taylor and Trustee Wallace run and are elected or run without opponents, then they would just continue on from that point. But I guess my point just being that there's a lot of potential flexibility and movement on the board again. So we need to be aware of that as we kind of scope this out.
So could we end on the word outreach and cut potential?
Yeah, we can.
I like that. Yeah.
Okay. How does anybody else have a feeling strongly about taking out the word potential? And we can end after outreach. I really, this was for, I want Trustee Hemingway Lynch to be comfortable with, where
Thank
we're
you.
at. Yeah, it's
No, I
important.
appreciate that, Trustee Sherry. And I'm sorry to have accommodations. However, I guess what I'm thinking about is like all the conversations we've had about our role, right? And our role is about, in some capacity, also thinking about the outreach to the community and the community's ability to count on us as ambassadors, right, in a way. And I just want to be thoughtful about that and thinking that if we are asked, at the end of this year, what did you do? That we can say, we held 3 meetings to inform the plan, or whatever, as you were just saying, Trustee Sherry, whatever we think is appropriate and doable. But otherwise, I find it hard to just say we are supporting the administration in whatever in their plans, because I think it's just not as concrete as, for example, last year's goal, which was specifically hire a superintendent. Like that was a huge job, huge lift, and it was very specific, and you got it done. And that said a lot about this board. And I just want to aspire to the same kind of goal for this group, which is to say we said we wanted to do this, and we did it, and make it a little bit more concrete.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all, and it's not a special accommodation. I think that what you're asking for is fair and reasonable, and that was why I brought this goal back. So, I'm interested in setting a couple of measurable goals for us. I don't want to limit us by those, because if there are things that the superintendent needs our support with, I don't think we should be limited in what we can do. If there are meetings that she wants to have, things that need to be hosted, if there's opportunities for us to do more work, I want to be able to do that. So I just, if you guys can just give me like 3 measurable things. One would be forming the committee, the board ad hoc committee. I think that's a measurable. Yes, Superintendent McLaren.
I was kind of thinking that the board ad hoc committee would be a wonderful group to co-facilitate community outreach meetings with me. And then I would imagine that the board ad hoc committee could help brainstorm what information we should be bringing to those meetings and how we should structure them so that we're really, one of the things that I really liked about Dr. Bachman's study was he was really interested in just getting people's feedback on each one of the potential configurations, and he wasn't trying to say, you are picking this. He was trying to really not create that, putting one scenario against another. He was trying to really get people's feedback and thoughts on what the positives or negatives of each one were so that they could all be considered on their face value. So if the board ad hoc committee could wanted to, set a specific number of community meetings to have during the year that I would be happy to work cooperatively with.
I also would like the board ad hoc committee to take a look at Dr. Bachman's study and just make sure that we don't feel as if there's anything there that needs to be looked at differently because of COVID and because of the changes in our community over the last 2 years, which have been significant, but not significant in terms of enrollment, but the lack of housing, et cetera, and how that's impacted some of the communities that, could potentially be impacted by our long-term plan. So that's something that I would like the board ad hoc committee to do as well.
Can I?
Yeah.
How about forming the board ad hoc committee, hold a public meeting on the district-wide plan with the community, and reviewing the Bachman. What is it? Do you know the title? The Bachman study, to assess its appropriateness in the wake of COVID. Would that be a reasonable?
Which does not limit us to one meeting, but
At
that
least
we
one
will
meeting.
hold at least one.
Yeah.
One.
I think that's fantastic, and I appreciate it. I guess one question I just have maybe for Superintendent McLaren is that is that the last sort of study that was done in this scope? Would that be the one that we should be looking at in your opinion, or is there anything else that you think would be helpful for us?
I think certainly that is a very useful document. We have an enrollment. He actually did an enrollment projection within the study. Assistant Superintendent LeClaire last did an enrollment projection of her own for the district 2 years ago. So she's going to work on updating that, and we'll see how closely it jives with what Dr. Bachman had included in there. And I think that certainly helps us. And then just looking at the capacity of all the buildings, but I believe he has that within the study as well.
Yeah. Great.
I also think I don't want to be tied down to one thing. I like it being more general, because as we work through this process, there's going to be things that pop up that we don't think of, that, oh, wait, we need a meeting for this, or we need to do something like that, because because again, this is such a big undertaking. It is going to be a long time. So I like it more general, so we have the flexibility to go through.
Trustee Bishop?
Well, could we build in some type of schedule to receive input from the superintendent? Could we have an expectation, a stated expectation about, how often we'll have a report? That might be something that would certainly be measurable and, public communication.
So I hear two very different things happening here. I hear Trustee Story asking that we don't put boundaries on the goal itself, and that we keep the goal flexible and malleable. And I hear other trustees saying that they would like the goal to be measurable. I think there's probably a way to do both, and my suggestion would be that we look at the area where it says the board acknowledges that additional challenges and opportunities will likely be discovered throughout the exploration process. So that kind of gives us the room that I think you're looking for, Trustee Story, to kind of be flexible as needed. And these goals, maybe we could write, but not limited to. The board will accomplish these goals, but is not limited to these specific measures of success, which I think would address Trustee Story's concerns, but would also give us measurable goals. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Okay, but my question is, what is going to be in the first year the board expects to accomplish?
I've got a.
What is that words? What is the rest of that?
How about
just read it?
But I'll do it again because I've tweaked. So in the next year, the board plans to form a ad hoc committee, Board Ad Hoc Committee hold at least one meeting to discuss the district's long-term plan and review the Bachman plan. And I would probably add something about COVID as, given, its appropriateness or its viability in the wake of COVID. Those are manageable goals that we could, I think.
And then Cindy had mentioned maybe we could put, at least one update with Superintendent McLaren so that we have that as a measurable. Is that comfortable for you? Okay. And that, likely we'll have much more than this to do. And I don't think that any of us are going to hold ourselves to what we have here, but it is a place for us, a way for us to measure to the community what we have achieved in working on this very long-term plan, which I can't say enough.
Can I have that language, Cindy, that you want to? I'm just trying to keep notes here. So and
request progress at one.
And request one progress report
from the superintendent.
At least one progress report. Okay. Should we read?
You want to read it aloud? Yeah, for the record.
And please, I hope, huh?
Can you add public meeting?
Yeah, I got public meeting. You did. All right. I'll try this again. Support the, do you want me to read the whole thing? Okay. Support the development of the district's long-term, district-wide plan that addresses current challenges and opportunities that have already been identified, including declining enrollment, staff shortages, facilities needs, budget, student achievement, community impact, and the expansion of the middle school to add 6th graders. The board acknowledges that additional challenges and opportunities will likely be discovered throughout the exploration process. The board's, and that should be apostrophe S, right? The board, the board, it's got an extra S there. So the board aims to accomplish this through input from the superintendent, a board ad hoc committee, the shared decision-making committee, PTAs, as well as clear and consistent community outreach. In the first year, the board plans to accomplish the establishment of the board ad hoc committee, to hold at least one public meeting to discuss the district's long-term plan, to review the Bachman plan, given the Bachman plan's viability, how about that, just that, and request at least one progress report from the superintendent. It's a mouthful, but I think it gets. Does that work for everybody?
Are we good? All right, so then I'm going to make a motion to rescind our previous goal. Go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry, just wanted you to see this so everybody knows what I'm showing them, but it's the name of that study. So it's called the School Building Utilization and Grade Configuration Study.
So we can add the specific name of the when I said the Bachman plan.
So people know what that is.
Honestly, let's keep it in the Bachman plan. Bachman, because that's exactly what we know what we is, because there are older building utilization plans and stuff like this. We call it the Bachman plan. We know exactly.
Does the community know that though, Trustee Story? I want to make sure, because this is going to be on our website, right? So we want to make people understand what we're doing.
And it was.
Well, it could be a link.
When the 2022 building utilization study or something like that versus.
It's already on the website, the Bachman report.
We can make it an added
Okay.
link,
Yeah, perfect.
probably. That way someone can click. And
Yeah, I think that when we put our board goals up, they will have the opportunity to look at all the associated documents through board docs. So it'll all be there. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to rescind our previous goal and to pass goal number 1 in place of it. Before we do that, can we agree on goal number 2? Does anybody have any feedback on the wording of goal number 2?
Yeah, I did one little addition if we're going to add this list about what we're advocating for. Since Trustee Hemingway Lynch was so successful and managed to pass a resolution, I think we should add universal pre-K to the list after food security.
As just an advocacy measure, as something
Correct.
that you would like to advocate for.
Correct.
Do we have support from at least 4 trustees for that? Okay.
Universal pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds.
That was the resolution. So yeah, I'd like to try and reinforce that wonderful resolution, at least in our hopes and what we're advocating for.
Okay. Given that, any other questions about the wording? All right, so what I would like to do is pass both of these. All right, I'm not asking you to pass them. I'm just saying that we're going to vote on them. So I'd like to make a motion to rescind goal number 1 and to take a vote on goals 1 and 2 as they have been read and as they are written. May I have a first, please? Trustee Wallace, second. Trustee Hemingway Lynch. Any questions or comments?
Will we minor grammatical issues we can correct, right?
You're killing me, David.
Yeah.
You're killing me. Yes, we can. Okay. Questions or comments other than my bad grammar? Anyone? Me? All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. All right, now we have 2 goals. Okay. Oh, here we go. Consent agenda. Item 14.01. The board hereby approves item numbers 14.02 to 14.06. May I have a first, please? Trustee Raimondo, second. Trustee Bishop, questions or comments? All in favor? Oh, I've read the Schedule U and it appears to be in order. Any questions or comments? No? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Does anyone have a committee report they would like to share? Trustee Story?
Yes, we had facilities committee last week in Phoenicia. Some of our work has to be put on hold. Shocking with our lack of, that just went straight out of my head. Supply chain issues. There we go. So some work that we have had planned to do this summer is already being pushed off to next summer. We have put some stuff up. We have some issues with funding is also we're running into because what we've budgeted for is not actually what the invoices or the bids are coming back are high. So some of the things like generators at Phoenicia and Woodstock, I think had to be taken off. Well, put on hold for now, but we're having to look back at what plans we're planning to do because of the bids coming in so high and rework stuff. But we are also running into the issue of some of this work is being funded by our grants from the CARES Act, the 2 different things, and they have to be spent by a certain day. So as I had asked at our last meeting if the Legislative Action Committee could start reaching out to our federal representatives to turn around and start advocating for them to extend this time, because it's not just school districts, it's construction, it's hospitals that got CARE Act money that are in the same type of thing. However, New York State schools are different. We're more stringent. New York State, everybody knows, most regulated when it comes to schools in the nation, and so there's even more with the CARES Act. So we've had lots of discussions trying to play and figure out what we can do, and also part of the problem is the facilities committee needs to know where we are going on a long-term budget plan or long-term plan. So once we work on our board goal now, that can give the facilities committee a little bit more understanding of where the district's moving.
Excellent. Thank you for Matt. And I believe that we have a new community member, right, to welcome to the Facilities Committee. So thank you to Liz Neisel. Is that how you say it? Neisel? Ellie Neisel, for joining us on facilities. We really appreciate the support from the community. I think that the Legislative Action Committee can probably get a letter done in the next couple of days, and then we'll send it around to the rest of the board for you guys to take a look at before we send it out to our federal representatives. Does anybody else have a committee report that they'd like to share? Yeah.
Actually, I was just going to report on behalf of the Communications Committee that we recognize that we need to submit draft bullets of that would include the content for the next newsletter. And I was just going to ask if I could use this minute to make sure I'm right in terms of protocol. Can it be submitted? Should it be submitted to all the board members, or can it just come from the committee to the BOCES representative? I believe that's Valerie. Excuse me.
I think what you're asking is if the board feels like, as a whole, feels like we need to see what you're submitting for the newsletter?
Yeah, for the shorthand. So we agreed on a process that the Communications Committee would come up with the content based on Superintendent McLaren's updates. We would then take that information and just synthesize it and offer it in bullet form to BOCES colleagues who would create the first draft, and then we could review the first draft before it went to print. So I was just curious in terms of the process, if I can take ownership of that as the chair of the committee, or if the whole board needs to see that.
I would say if you could send it around for everyone to see, but I don't think that you need to wait for everyone to weigh in on it, right? I mean, I think we'd all be comfortable. I think the onus of responsibility is on the rest of the board to pay attention, and when that comes in, if there's an issue, to reach out to the board as a whole. But if you could send it to everyone so that everyone's aware of it, that would be
Sure.
great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? No? Okay. Old business? Does anyone have old business to discuss? Yeah. Trustee Bishop?
Yes. I'm wondering if we might consider having a conversation about eliminating the November 22nd board meeting. We did discuss in the spring the possibility of eliminating some winter holiday month board meetings, and this one might be a good one to consider.
That's the one right before Thanksgiving.
Right before Thanksgiving.
Trustee Story?
What if I've got the calendar right in front of us right now. What if we just move it to the 15th and have one meeting that month and it's in between? Instead of that, because I'm worried about special ed and IEPs having to be approved before services, stuff like that. And independent contact ICRs and stuff like that it'll be a long time before our next meeting.
Trustee Story, I just wanted to say that that many times the IEP programs have started before the board actually approves those IEPs. You know, sometimes the IEPs are delayed for several weeks, maybe even months before they come across our table through the Schedule U. So we do have to approve all the programming and, and assure that it's going to be funded and all that. But those programs are often put in place and operational before we see the IEPs on the Schedule U.
But then there's also, we're right around the time where we have program reviews and modifications will go in, because this is about the 10-week, the time frame. So why I'm just suggesting we move it into the middle of November, and this way on the 15th, and we only have one that month, because the next board meeting is the 6th of December.
Okay, so Assistant Superintendent Allison.
I also just want to say the district is also working on, during that time, really facilitating our 504 annual review process, which does not come to the board. So I don't anticipate that we're actually having a lot of CSE meetings, but our focus right now is on 504 annual reviews. We moved that to the fall winter so that we could put more time on the annual review process and put less tax on the building in terms of substitutes. So I don't anticipate that we're actually going to have a ton of CSE meetings in the November month period.
Thank you very much. Okay, so what I hear Trustee Bishop saying is that one meeting in the month of November, when there is Thanksgiving break and a lot of family obligations for everyone, would be ideal. And what I hear Trustee Story saying is that she would potentially like it to be the middle of the month, so that we don't have a 1 month gap between the two meetings. Does anybody have a strong opinion about that, one way or the other? Trustee Bishop.
I just have a question. If we were to move the board meeting to the 15th, are there any scheduling conflicts on the 15th?
Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to attend. I've made business travel that week.
My only comment is regarding communication, because it's already printed on there. And I know we send out blasts, but there's people who may have that and just go into the automatic mode of reading that schedule. So that would be my only drawback to not moving it.
And unfortunately, your district clerk and your assistant superintendent for business will be at a conference on the 15th.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm a little torn on this, because I have a very busy week that week from a work position. So I would love to be working on the 22nd. But I do feel a little concerned about having a full month gap between the meetings. I think what I'd like to do is say that tentatively we would agree to only have one meeting, but that if Superintendent McLaren feels as if there are things that need to be dealt with, that we will try to get a quorum together to have a meeting on the 22nd. So that, for sure, Trustee Bishop doesn't have to be here. And as long as I can get 4 people, if Superintendent McLaren feels as it's necessary, I will commit to working here on the 22nd. And then I'll just need 3 others who would agree to do that as well. Okay, Trustee Wallace, thank you. You won't be here. Okay. What's that look? Are you away? Are you? Yes. Yeah. Well, I would love to not have that meeting if we don't need to, but if you need us to, then we will. Yeah, I think we're all saying the same thing. If we don't need to have that meeting, we won't need it. If we don't have to have it, we won't have it. If Superintendent McLaren needs us to meet, then we will have a quorum for her.
So I will move forward communicating that we are not planning on having that meeting. Okay. And I mean, as always, whenever something emergent arises, we have been known to schedule special meetings. So if we have something that has to be addressed, we always do address it.
Yeah, I think we're all saying the same thing. If we can avoid that meeting and get everything done on the 10th, the 8th rather, then we'll get it done, and then we'll meet again in December. If something comes up and we need to have a meeting on the 22nd, then we will have a quorum for the superintendent. Okay? Yeah? Everybody agreed? Okay, great. New business. Does the board have any new business? No? Any requests for information from the superintendent? Trustee
Sorry,
Lynch?
I'm super slow in this regard. But I just, as you mentioned the calendar, Megan, Trustee Raimondo, it does have election night on the wrong night. Election night is November 8th. And I didn't know if that affected our board meetings at all, or the use of the school. This is not a voting location, is it? Okay, great. We're at Woodstock.
Any RFIs? No? No? Trustee Bishop? Yes, yes, we can go backwards.
I'm asking us to go backwards. Just to old business, and I just wanted to remind all the trustees that if you haven't already responded to Superintendent McLaren's advocacy email for school meals, to please do that. It's really easy. It's super easy, and I think super important.
It was sent last week.
And NISBA sent, you should have gotten one from Superintendent McLaren and also from NISBA.
It was it's an advocacy where they pre-populate a letter, and as long as you fill in your information, it sends it to our representatives. Advocating for free school meals for all children.
I'll have a look and certainly support that.
Yeah, it's very easy to do. They make it very easy for us, and it's well worth our time.
Trustee Story is the first to adjourn. May I have a second, please? Trustee Bishop, questions or comments? All in favor? That's unanimous.